Hi, and welcome to Night Clerk Radio. This is episode 23, Yig. This is Cryo Chamber's latest Cthulhu Mythos collaborative yearly album. Annual album, whatever you want to call it.
A tradition.
Yeah, they've actually been doing this, I think, about 10 years. They put out quite a few, actually.
Yeah.
And of course, with me, as always, is Burke. How you doing, Burke?
Hi. I'm good. I'm a rude interrupter. But it is a tradition. Yeah, I did not realize how big the collection was until I went to the Bandcamp for Yig to get it to listen to for this episode. And they have the big 10 or 15 CD collection of all of the Lovecraft stuff. I was like, damn. Been at it for a while.
Yeah, I've actually been aware. This is one of the things I've been aware of for Cryo Chamber for years now, even before I got into Vaporwave, really, because they've been very good about SEO on YouTube. Some of their Cthulhu Mythos albums have millions of views, I believe. A lot of people have, of course, found them through those videos, which are just the album cover with the music playing, because Cthulhu Mythos music, a lot of people search for that.
Yeah. And of course, we've done one previously. Last year, we did Haster with Caleb.
Yeah, which was certainly an interesting album and worth listening to. Before we get into the music, though, I should mention, it makes me wonder what they're eventually going to run out of Cthulhu Mythos deities to, name albums after. So I wonder if they're going to start working their way down to, lowlier entities, ghouls and deep ones and whatnot.
Maybe, because Yig, I feel like, is more obscure than some of the other ones they could do. It's funny you mentioned this because I saw a similar conversation in the comment section on YouTube where people are like, what are they going to do when they run out of, Lovecraft demons? And someone just posted a link to Lovecraft Wikia of every named thing ever in the mythos. It's like they've got a while to go.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on how obscure they want to get. I mean, Yig at least has an actual story or two. There is the Curse of Yig, and it's mentioned in other texts, obviously. But yeah, Yig is, as deities go, rather benign. I mean, it still kills people and stuff, but other Cthulhu Mythos deities are, personifications or symbols of chaos or the center of the universe or the leader of an intelligent species for Cthulhu. But Yig is snakes, just snakes.
I was going to ask what a Yig was because, some people listening at home, such as myself, might not know what Yig is. I'm not as up on my mythos as you are.
Yeah, Yig is the father of snakes, the father of serpents.
Okay. Seems like a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it's obviously inspired by Quetzalcoatl and those sort of Mesoamerican deities. And he is referred to as being worshipped by Native Americans, indigenous peoples in Central America and southern states of the U.S. And in other stories, he is actually related to other even more obscure entities, like the mate of the outer god Yidra.
Is this all just off the top of your head?
Well, I knew about the Curse of Yig, but I am looking at the Cthulhu, the Lovecraftian mythos because I forgot. Because I was
about to be real impressed.
Yeah, yeah, I could have lied, but no, y'all deserve the truth here. So, anyways, Yig's whole thing is, he protects serpents and the people, the Native Americans, the people who live in the Southwest or the South, do various rituals and things to placate him. And obviously, they don't touch snakes, and of course, in the various stories, someone's got to mess with the snake god or his serpents. And well, that never winds up well for them.
It's a bad plan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. He's not trying to plan the downfall of humanity. He's just,
out chilling with the snake clan.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That puts some of the music in context.
Oh, the other thing is the little booklet that they have. Each of these albums is accompanied by a little booklet, which is, you buy the digital version, it's a series of high resolution JPEGs. And there's a little bit of text, and it's this sort of prayer to Yig, and it's accompanied by unique art. Yeah, I quite like it. It's always pretty high quality stuff.
It's one of the things that makes it really tempting to get the CD collection. Even though I don't consume a lot of physical media anymore, that's my favorite part of it, is all of the extras that you maybe don't necessarily get in digital purchases. So that's cool that they include it as part of the digital download.
Yeah, exactly. And if you get the CD or the vinyl, you'll get an actual little booklet so you can have something to, physically hold. There should be a vinyl release of this, and if I had a record player, I would be very tempted to get it. I think this actually done by Simon Heath, at least the artwork does, who is of course Atrium Carceri, who's also the guy who runs Cryo Chamber. So big shout out to that very, very talented multi-Renaissance man, really.
Yeah, I think he also does a lot of the Does he do the 3D animations that appear in their various YouTube videos?
I believe so, yeah.
Because now they've started to do more animations. Like the Yig on YouTube is not just the album cover anymore. It has like it's a repeated short one, but kind of like a slithering desert tendril mass against the sun. It kind of moves. So that stuff looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of his artwork is done through highly stylized 3D renderings.
Yeah.
I do like Cryo Chamber's aesthetic, but like, man, they really know what they're after, which is like a person in a very large landscape. There's a tiny little dude with their back turned to you, and they're looking at something really ominous and cool, awe-inspiring at the same time. And they like that.
Really aiming to make you feel tiny.
And some of the artwork in here obviously is evocative of that in the little booklet. But yeah, let's talk about the music.
Let's get into it.
I think this is better than Haster. I think the main thing is Haster is far more drone oriented as an album than this one. And there's an interesting conversation to have, like, what is dark ambient versus drone? And just as an overview, do you agree with me there, Burke?
I think broadly, because I was thinking about Haster when we decided to do this, because initially I was not super excited because, you know, Haster, we did, and I enjoyed it and had a fun episode recording it, but it kind of passed through me. I feel like I forgot it fairly quickly.
Yeah, it didn't really stand the test of time for me.
It didn't stick with me. I don't know if Yig will, but I think it has a better chance to. I think overall I liked it more. It still has a lot of that really masterful soundscape atmosphere creation, which we'll talk about more specifically. But there's actual pieces of more composed melodic pieces that I think are stronger than anything that was on Haster, even though Haster had some like interesting acid rock stuff.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of interesting folk.
Yeah. I mentioned the folk music as well. Like it almost feels like a slow folk music at times, especially in track 2.
You could maybe argue that that's thematic because Haster, you could think about being lost more in the soundscape. You're wandering Carcosa or whatever. But Yig feels very cinematic and very thematic. It feels like a journey. Like there's long parts of desert soundscape, basically, which I don't know if that necessarily comes through in the music, but I kind of put that in after the fact, sort of knowing about the thematic content. But then there's these breaks, these like oasi of just like really nice percussion or something melodic or something folksy. And that's this interesting breakup of this journey through these 2 tracks.
Yeah, connecting it to the source material, like Haster is a very alien sort of deity, and it's all about being taken away to off-world to an alien planet. And this one is like, Yig is strong in Oklahoma. Like, that is specifically mentioned in the stories that Yig is referred to as like archaeologists digging things up in Oklahoma and Cato County. So like this folk thing is like the local people there, they know how to deal with Yig and its rituals and offerings and that kind of thing. And it's closer to reality. But on the other hand, it's also like the desert or like these broken up, desolate places. So like, you know,
I think it really hit me listening to it this morning before we recorded. I'd already listened to it a bunch. So I was just sort of listening and just seeing in the background what caught my attention. And what caught my attention first was around 30 minutes in, so about halfway through the first track, a quarter of the way through the whole album, there's this music. call it the save room music at like 32 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the guitar and like some synth pad kind of stuff in the background.
Yeah. It sounds like Resident Evil save music, which is a concept that we talked about on the episode with Bridget of random interludes of fairly peaceful music against kind of a nightmarish landscape of other textures and sounds.
Yeah, no, for sure. As I mentioned in that episode, there is a Cryo Chamber mix on YouTube called Save Room Music.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I believe that some of that music is a lot. I mean, they have sort of their own artists that, reappear and do stuff. But like, obviously, Flowers for Body Snatchers is in that mix. Atrium Carceria, God Body Disconnect. This is a collaborative effort between 20 different artists.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
It's at least 20, maybe more. It's a pretty long list of names.
Yeah, over 20 artists linked studios and sounds for over a year so that they could work with each other. We're beginning to, I think it's beginning to the point that we've listened to enough Cryo Chamber each that we could think, oh, this is this artist, which is maybe a sign you're listening to too much dark ambient, or I don't know.
Yeah, I did not necessarily have those connections, but you definitely did. And once you point them out, they totally make sense. But I think you maybe consume more Cryo Chamber than I do.
Yeah, like I said, Cryo Chamber is probably my single favorite label because, I don't really follow labels that much. I mean, there's a couple of Vaporwave ones too, but I think probably the most obvious thing is actually Beyond the Ghost, who has also put out this album called Eternal Drift this year, which is also featured in the 2020 Cryo Chamber Dark Ambient sort of sampler album, which is free.
Yep.
But it's just tracks from different albums. And it's kind of a little sampler like, oh, if you like this, you might want to actually get the full album. The last track of that album is Beyond the Ghost, and the song is called Eternal Drift from the album Eternal Drift. I can hear elements of that song in Yig. Certainly, like there's this piano that keeps reappearing and this sort of slow, like melodic music, which I really do like because I really do like ambient music with a melodic element. Like if it's just drone, it's not enough. I think it's the contrast between the drone and the melody that sort of creates an interesting tension in the music. And there's other elements too, because I think Beyond the Ghost did a album called You Disappeared, which is very Silent Hill inspired. And there's one element in particular, I think about 48 minutes in the first track, which I couldn't identify. Thank you for helping me identify the instruments.
That's what I'm here for.
Which is this tremolo picking mandolin, which you can kind of hear. If you can hear that sort of mandolin picking, it reminds me of the sort of reoccurring motif, leitmotif of the Silent Hill series, which you can hear most notably in Silent Hill 1. But that same mandolin sound is in Silent Hill 2 and 3 and 4. There's actually, sort of referenced as the motif of Silent Hill in the Silent Hill wiki. Let's go and put that 10 seconds in there. I, of course, love that because I do love the Silent Hill soundtracks.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
Yeah. I want to think that that's an intentional homage to that or sort of building upon it. But that was one of the standout elements of this album for me.
Yeah. I think in general, other parts that stood out to me in terms of talking about melodic parts were also kind of in the back half. They sort of come in and out of the back half of this album. In that mandolin part, actually, now that I think about it, is that wailing violin that's over it.
Yeah.
Man, it sounds really good and sad. And it's one of those things I was like, oh, is this... As I think of so much of this as being like synth or virtual instruments, but it has to be a live violin.
Yeah.
Like it just sounds The intonation is just too, if it's a synth violin, they've gotten too good at that.
Yeah.
Because it sounds amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the things I'm a sucker for is just like a good string element in a dark ambient album. Like there's a lot of emotion and then a lot of, yeah, it just hits your ears just right. It's the only way I can put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there were elements of this that actually reminded me of the Kronos Quartet, like that kind of intricate chamber music that they sort of do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
One of the albums I almost wore out was probably my CD of Requiem for a Dream soundtrack. I can't even tell you how many times I listened to that. I probably still have it somewhere scratched up, in a CD wallet somewhere in a drawer.
Just lost to eternity.
Yeah. Well, next time I move, I'll just find it's like, oh my God. Again, one of the reasons why I started liking this kind of music was, Silent Hill, Kronos Quartet. and Upwards of Canada. Those are the three people I would name.
That's your Mount Rushmore of getting into dark ambient.
Basically.
Yeah. Another aspect of this album I really liked is there's a lot of really interesting and varied percussion throughout, supporting a lot of this melodic stuff, which helps serve as an early breaking out of some of the more atmospheric and repetitive parts. Because like the first, 10 minutes of the first track is just kind of this windy soundscape. And then there's these gentle, low drums start to come in.
Yeah.
And they start to provide like this rhythmic structure, and they just get more and more prominent and more structured kind of over the first 20 minutes. It's like the slowest build ever. It's almost like a snake cult, like marching towards you or something. Like you become more and more aware of the details. I mean, I actually have this in there, an actual beat in my dark ambient. It's more likely than you think. I also have like about 13 minutes in on track one. It's like, it's this little bit, it actually kind of reminded me of like one of the more quiet Nine Inch Nails song. Oh yeah. Cause a lot of this is like borderline industrial.
Yeah.
Or outright. That makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Also like the sort of buzzing a minute earlier, around 12 minutes in, it reminded me of Solaris from Flowers for Body Snatchers, which we reviewed earlier. But like, there's a lot of that sort of like kind of sonar, sort of like Doppler effect sounds moving across from left to right a bit. So obviously Flowers for Body Snatchers is another one of the artists who worked on this album. And again, I'm just hearing elements of that. Like, I listened to Solaris like 10 times. I can recognize that little weird buzzing Doppler effect thing.
It's cool. I didn't know they were on this, but that totally makes sense because they are really good at that industrial, but also kind of organic.
Oh, actually, no, I'm wrong. Sorry. They are not on this. They're not listed. Sorry. I just assumed they were, but
there's some stuff that feels like it's inspired by what they do, like this buzzing, this industrial sounds, but also there's a lot of little organic, weird little sounds in there. There's like skittering of bugs or slithering of snakes and buzzing.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. And it really reminds me of like the back half of Solaris.
So yeah, obviously, Flowers for Body Snatchers not the only one who can do that.
Sure.
Yeah, but so it was evocative of that. But there's times where it's totally different. Like one note I had for this album was that every 10 minutes, you just skip to a different 10 minutes and played it for people. They'd think it was a different album. Like there's a lot more variation in this album than there was in Haster. There's some parts that is about 28 minutes in the first track where it's these synth pads that are very pleasant. It's almost like the Blade Runner soundtrack almost.
Yeah. We both wrote, I think it's interesting, Vangelis like synths for that part.
Yeah.
Well, let me just put it in. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. don't know why it makes me think of Vangelis. I mean, I kind of do. There's just that pulsing in and out, like the sweeping pulsing, but still kind of smooth synth. And then the thing that really sealed it for me is that they transition out of these melodic lines with like a backwards, like sweep kind of cutoff. And that's big in Blade Runner, where they'll have like his theme as they push in over Los Angeles. And then it's kind of like zoop into, like Leon in the Tyrell building.
Yeah, it's kind of like a pressure drop, like you're going into an airlock or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of pretty abrupt transitions in this. Not like super abrupt, but like, man, when it changes pace, it changes pace. But like, not always. Like, I don't know, it sort of keeps you on your toes, which is nice. And I mean, this is sort of like Dark Ambient. I think it's sort of at its best when you can put it on and you just kind of forget about it, but then every once in a while it's like, I'm still here. I mean, yeah, I've been affecting your subconscious, but now conscious brain, come on in. But I mean, we've been focusing a lot on track 1.
Yes,
but there's still a lot of really cool stuff on track 2 as well. Probably the standout for me, like about 20 minutes in, 19, 20 minutes in, is this shift to Silent Hill-ish town music with like a piano, like a sort of gloomy kind of guitar. There's a beat again. I was like, ooh, again, that's why I think Beyond the Ghost, because Beyond the Ghost did a whole Silent Hill-ish album, You Disappeared, which is definitely worth listening to. It's actually one of those albums I just bought, even though we haven't reviewed it. Because I just do that because I like to support Cryo Chamber.
Oh, yeah. No, you should always, if you like what we talk about on here, support the people that make it in any way you can. So for track 2, I think the 2, there's like 3 things I have written out that really caught me, like enough to stop and make notes. The one was the one you just talked about, because the piano, like the gentle piano against synth kind of transitioning into like back into deep and atmospheric, but there's like a pan flute type instrument in the background.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what to call it.
Definitely should let the people know about that.
Then maybe 10 minutes later, there's these like pulsing, sweeping drums and more of that just, and that's probably my favorite part across all 2 hours, is that it's just so evocative. Like it just pulled me out, and like, I just had to write down like, this is my favorite part.
I think I know what you're talking about. It's almost like folk music, right? Yeah.
But like weird and distorted.
Yeah, like folk music, but in a horror movie. This is like a Wicker Man-esque folk horror. This is like the like Midsummer, but in the fall. They're getting ready to do some other horrible ritual, but like, yeah, they're just kind of meditative while they're thinking about who to sacrifice next for the harvest or whatever, or a ghost story kind of thing.
Definitely.
That's the thing, is like Cryo Chamber does put out a lot of great music, so I don't have time to listen to it. I wonder if there's like an album of just that, because I would love to just put that directly into my veins. But then like 10 minutes later, you have this sort of like industrial sound, like around 44 minutes in, this very like intense sort of like wall of sound with like the hum of machinery, and it's very industrial.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which means that I get to mention it's some real Lynch shit.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to mention that in a couple episodes, but it is like he's real into those industrial soundscapes of, as I've talked about before. There's like little electric crackles, again, like bugs slithering, like grossness, like sonic grossness is a thing that comes up a lot in this. So it really reminded me of some of his back to like Eraserhead style soundscapes. All right, I did it. I said it.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
And as the album sort of fades out towards the end, the sort of the last act of the album goes more soundscape again, with like more rain sounds and bell ringing. And like, I really loved at the very end, there's like it sounded like there's a didgeridoo like about an hour in.
I guess maybe that is what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it went back to soundscape for me, because I think the last 4 to 10 minutes of this album are actually really interesting. There's like chimes and some other textured stuff. But then there's like this burst at an hour and 2 minutes into like serenity, like all of that noise.
Yeah, that's true.
Goes away. It's like very peaceful.
Yeah, it's very cosmic.
Yeah, exactly. Like some sort of transcendence or whatever, if you want to put it into some, I don't know, you were taken into the cult and achieved snake nirvana, whatever that is.
Well, Yeager's back asleep. The murders have ended.
Yeah.
It's fine. The archaeologists are gone.
It kind of carries that mood out to the end, which I thought was a nice conclusion. Really good structure. Yeah,
it'd be really interesting to see if this album sort of if we're listening to it, by the time the next album rolls around. I don't know if this is going to be my favorite album. That's probably still going to be Miles to Midnight from Cryo Chamber, but this is definitely a step up.
Oh, yeah.
So I look forward to their next effort. You can listen to the whole thing right now on YouTube, I believe, right?
Yeah, YouTube or Bandcamp.
But yeah, I would definitely recommend supporting the artist if you like this kind of music. But like, it is such a journey. Like, there's so much variation. There's so many interesting elements in there. And there's things we haven't even mentioned.
No, it's 2 hours of music. There's so much buried in there.
Yeah, there's some throat singing in there. There's some like weird cyclical sounds, like almost like an engine revving up or something. I don't know.
Some like choir stuff, both synth and what sounds like a woman singing.
Yeah,
in there. That is the last kind of major point I wanted to talk about across both parts. Is I was really impressed by the variety of instrumentation on this album compared to what I remember from Haster and maybe some other Cryo Chamber albums. There's a lot of stuff where I was like Googling and I'm not going to say any names because I don't know if I'm right, but there's all types of like interesting percussion and stringed instruments and horns and flutes and woodwinds that I don't think make it into a lot of Western music. And it was really, really awesome to hear all those different sounds and textures properly utilized in such a cohesive way. It was a really fun opportunity to nerd out and try to look up all these instruments I'd never been exposed to.
If Cryo Chamber listens to this, I hope they do. Like at some point, like if you do some sort of behind the scenes material, I would be fascinated to see.
Oh yeah.
Like
tonally it's inappropriate, but I would love a pop-up video for this.
Oh yeah.
Of just like little factoids coming up like this is a djembe drum and like that would be really cool.
Yeah, it's a rich and rewarding experience to listen to this because it's sort of like, what the hell is that? Like, that's half the fun. It's almost like, what is that if you think about it? But then just kind of accepting it and just hoping, the snakes are not angry with you because they're all around you. You're in their territory. I hope you've made the right corn offerings. It was like, that's the thing in the story is that like they make offerings of corn to placate Yig.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Good to know. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this discussion of Cryo Chamber's yearly Lovecraftian collaboration. We are really excited to see what they do next time. But next episode, we're going to cover albums from Master Boot Record and Fornax Void, two artists who produce very different music, but both use computers and that cyberspace sort of aesthetic in really novel ways to produce music and visual art. In particular, Fornax Void is tagged as semiconductor wave, which is probably my new favorite subgenre. So definitely join us for that. If you want to reach out with feedback, suggestions, comments, etc., you can always find us on Twitter at Nightclerk Radio. Ross is at Ross Payton. I am at Burke McBurkinson. We're also Night Clerk Radio on YouTube, so you can subscribe and leave us comments there as well. I do take the time to read them, and if there are questions or whatever, I will respond. I'm also hoping to branch out and produce some more video content this year, so keep an eye out for that, and let me know if there's anything you'd like to see. You can also find us through more traditional podcast channels like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever finer podcasts are sold. So definitely, if you have a moment, please take the time to just leave a review. It really helps us out. Even word of mouth is a great help. We really appreciate everybody who takes the time to listen to this show. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Don't let the snake cult get you, or maybe do.